Wrestlemania 8, Indianapolis Hoosier Dome. Is it Hogan's final match? Let's figure it out. First off, it's a little house cleaning. I'm under the weather. I got sinuses going on. My throat's on fire, so the voice is going to be a little raspy. Hopefully, I can get through this with a clean, sound voice, no coughing, no hoarse raspiness. Just me giving you guys WrestleMania 8. All right, let's get into it. So Indianapolis felt a lot like WrestleMania 3. It had kind of, I don't want to say a see-through ceiling, but it was one of those more transparent ceilings with the sunlight coming through, and I really like the way that looks. It really shows the magnitude of an arena when it's not so dark. It just a big callback to WrestleMania 3. I loved that arena. They had Reba McEntire sing America the Beautiful, and it was a wonderful rendition. You know, I've kind of gotten away from talking about the anthem or America the Beautiful in the stadium, but I had to note how grand the Indianapolis Hoosier Dome felt and how wonderful Reba's version of the anthem was. So, getting right into it, just like WrestleMania has done since about WrestleMania 3. Match 1, we have Tito Santana versus Shawn Michaels. And Tito's doing some Matador gimmick. I thought was kind of corny myself. Nice to see early HBK. Yeah, so this is definitely not the debut of the Heartbreak Kid, but this is definitely early HBK. His first year, I would say, as HBK, because in WrestleMania 7, he was still with the Rockers. He was still with Jannetty. There's a lot of pre-match pomp and circumstance from HBK, doing a lot of showboating with Sherry Martel. And it sets up Tito nice. You know, it gets popped from the crowd for Tito to go for the finish early and have the crowd cheer for him. HBK really carried Tito in this match. He really made Tito look good because, in my opinion, Tito's just never been somebody I've gotten behind. He might be the most underrated wrestler of all time. Tito might be the hardest worker of all time, the most, humble wrestler of all time. It seemed like he just did whatever he was told to do and just went to work. That's one thing I can say nice about Tito, but just his gimmick, his look, his personality, I've just never gotten behind Tito. So kudos to HBK for getting the crowd behind him because Tito needs it, in my opinion. The pacing was slow, but that didn't throw the match off. The chemistry felt good. You know, it felt like Tito and HBK had wrestled each other before. I wrote this is some of the best wrestling I've ever seen from Tito. It's interesting to hear Monsoon call out the reverse crossing kick HBK landed on Tito. And why it's interesting to hear that move call out is because that move eventually becomes the Sweet Chin Music. HBK beautifully sold a reverse atomic drop. HBK is a great seller. One thing I really appreciate about HBK, you put a move on him, he's going to sell the crap out of it and make you look good. The finish was awkward, appearing like Tito not being able to power slam HBK. HBK fell on Tito for the pin. It looked like a botch that HBK just kind of took advantage of. Awkward finish, but an okay match to start off WrestleMania 8. And match 2, a match when I immediately heard the card, I was immediately invested. I'd like to follow this rivalry. I feel like this rivalry is more about the storytelling than the match, and we'll get into that, why I think that way. I wrote hindsight sucks sometimes because I know Jake loses. We all know Jake loses by 2023, right? Because Undertaker hadn't lost for, 25, 26 years at WrestleMania. But I wrote that I was hoping it was a great match. I liked Undertaker being unfazed by all the punches Jake was landing. It kind of helped the whole Frankenstein Undertaker gimmick that the punches weren't phasing him. Undertaker really seemed to lean into the gimmick in those early days, and that just kind of helped. I don't think Jake stumbled into an intended spot Undertaker wanted. And Jake took a move and was staggering, and it just looked like what was a chokeslam setup. Undertaker just wisely turned it into a chokehold. But I'm not sure if it was meant to be a chokehold. It was just kind of an awkward spot. Like Jake was supposed to stumble into a certain spot for Undertaker to chokeslam him, and it just turned into a chokehold. There was another one of those weird aerial throat punch thingy bobbers, as I wrote, from Undertaker. I don't understand that move. I don't understand why he does it. He's such a big man, and he's just, I don't know, flopping around in the air just to throat punch a guy. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. There were several DDT spots. Jake playing heel and not going for the pin was really good, because he DDT'd the Undertaker and just left the Undertaker in the ring. And Taker does the raising from the dead spot, which really made it fun. And then the final spot was okay. A tombstone piledriver outside of the ring put Jake away. But the match felt like a missed opportunity. I don't know why Jake couldn't bring Damian to the ring. It just would add to the character contrast. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It would just add to the gimmicks of the match. Two of the most intense wrestlers of all time. In fact, I would dare to say the two most intense wrestlers of all time. The two guys that had the 1,000-yard stare, could stare into your soul, were Jake the Snake and The Undertaker. And so this is a dream match for me. But there's just something missing from this match. I don't know. I feel like WrestleMania is supposed to be everybody's best match of their feud. It's supposed to be anyways. And I know it's just hard to put on 5-star matches all the time. People are human. And they have off days. But there's just something missing from this match. And I know one thing that was missing from the match was Damian. There just wasn't as much drama as there should have been, in my opinion. Moving on to match 3, Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper. Fantastic match. I thought Piper was funny in the shared promo. He was talking about how he's known Bret Hart since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. I really laughed when Piper said Bret Hart wasn't potty trained until he was 7. Bret ruined the entire promo. Like, Piper had created all this momentum for the promo, and then Bret, being Bret Hart on the mic, is just awful to listen to. He says, "You got what I want, Piper, and I'm gonna take it." And that's it. That's about all he says. It's awful. That's like that's all you got, Bret. Crickets. The arm drag trading to begin the match was fun. I liked that. Back and forth arm drag trading. Piper did a good job of putting heat on this feud. Piper doing what he's always doing, acting like a madman, being a little dirty, erratic. It just helps to put heat on the feud. You really want a feud with heat. Piper's one of the best guys out there to put heat on a match. There's an entertaining spot with Piper magically trying to get out of a wrist lock. He just couldn't get out of it. He kept chopping Bret. He kept throwing Bret into the turnbuckle. Just could not get out of the wrist lock. I liked that. There's a cool spot of Piper catching Bret Hart off the ropes, but Bret lays on Piper, and they 360 over the top rope and hit the apron. I believe Bret took the brunt of the hit on the apron, which is supposed to be the most painful area in the ring to land on, because it's the edge of the ring. It's not where the mat, the safety mats and stuff are. Let's see here. Piper telling Bret Hart to look down at his boot and then punching him unawares was funny and just kind of a Looney Tunes moment, something Bugs Bunny would do. Very, very Piper. I really liked that moment. There's nice continuity from Piper to bust open Bret's head and then bite him. He bit him. Then he knee shot him to the head. I liked the continuity. Bret just was profusely bleeding everywhere. There's blood stains on the mat from this match, several matches down the line that I noticed. There was a snap suplex from Bret Hart, and it was super stiff. I felt bad for Piper. And there was a great spot of Piper putting his foot up, not his foot up to catch Brett off the turnbuckle. I like that. It's kind of a simple move, the reverse off the turnbuckle, reversing the turnbuckle move. You're just putting your foot up. But because Brett was hurt, it just added to the drama. Was Brett going to be able to take the strap off Piper? There was an awesome final spot of Brett kicking out of. So Piper put Bret Hart into a sleeper, and then Brett kind of kicked off the turnbuckle to do some sort of what I'm calling an inverted roll-up pin on Piper, all while in the sleeper hold. Like, Piper never let go of the sleeper hold, and it got the 1, 2, 3 count. Piper lost the strap. Brett got the strap, and it was one of the best matches I've ever seen from Piper. Some of the best wrestling I've ever seen from Piper. And Bret Hart really brings that out of people. A lot of people call Bret Hart the greatest wrestler of all time. And, I can't argue with your opinion on that. If you feel that way, he brings out the best. And even in a guy like Roddy Piper, who I don't consider a wrestling GOAT at all. Moving on to match 4, Sergeant Slaughter, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Big Boss Man, and Virgil versus Nasty Boys, Repo Man, and Mountie. There was a chaotic start with all 8 men brawling at the bell. There's an awful punch from Big Boss Man in there. He missed the brunette Nasty Boy by like a mile, but the Nasty Boy still sold it, and it was a delayed reaction as well. Just an awful spot. There's great teamwork from the faces being Slaughter, Hacksaw, Duggan, and Big Boss Man, and Virgil. I guess because you have Hacksaw, Virgil in there, you're supposed to include Slaughter and Big Boss Man as the faces of the match, plus Repo Man, Mountie, and Nasty Boys, definitely the heel team of this match. Just don't typically think of Slaughter and Big Boss Man as faces. But they had great teamwork. The heels had to resort to their dirty tactics behind the ref to keep the match even. There was a 6 side slam out of an abdominal stretch from the brunette Nasty Boy on Virgil. I need to learn their names instead of calling them the blonde and brunette Nasty Boy. It looked like an abdominal stretch, and then the brunette Nasty Boy just picked him up and slammed him out of it. Really, really cool move. Big Boss Man caught Mountie for a spinning inverted atomic drop. There we go. I said it. It cleared the sides, and I liked it. And the reason it cleared the sides is because Boss Man kind of just did his own thing. He just kind of stepped in the ring, interfered in the current singles match going on in the ring, and side slammed one of the legal wrestlers, and that cleared the sides. I liked the sides clearing, and the final spot was good. The brunette Nasty Boy missed Virgil, cold cocking his blonde partner, who was in pinned for the count. I liked it. It's a chaotic match. It's what I've recently understood from Jim Ross is horizontal booking. Horizontal booking is where you try to fit more of the roster into a single match to get more wrestlers onto a wrestling card. So it's horizontal booking. It was kind of chaotic. I didn't understand the team selection, but it was a fun match. Fun match for what it was. Moving right along, we got the match that should have been the main event, the final match of WrestleMania 8, but they stuck it in at match 5. They're pulling that NWA gimmick where they have 2 main events, and in the middle of the pay-per-view is the first main event. The main event should be the main event, the last event, in my opinion. I was surprised to see Savage enter last. Flair is the champion. I'm an old school guy. Flair enters last. It should be, we should have prestige on the belt. We shouldn't do things that take attention off of the belt. Having Macho Man come out last sets him up for all that pop, and it doesn't put attention on the champion as much. Immediately Savage, not Flair, immediately Savage was taking it to Flair on the entranceway. And Mr. Perfect aided Flair. Mr. Perfect was a great job of aiding Flair, being another obstacle in Savage's way to the title. This wasn't the most technical match of all time, but both guys did a great job of selling the feud. I really felt the heat on this match. I felt like both guys wanted to kill each other. You had the storyline of Flair and Elizabeth's past, and Flair threatening to throw up a nude picture of Miss Elizabeth up on the Titantron for WrestleMania 8. Just a fantastic job of selling the feud. This was the premier story of the WWF in 1992, in my opinion. There's an impressive delayed suplex from Flair. And when I mean by delayed suplex, he held Ric Flair in the air for a couple of seconds. And I thought that was impressive. I don't normally think of Flair as being that strong. Now, I acknowledge Macho Man isn't the most gigantoid guy there is on the roster. This isn't like Ric Flair suplexing Andre the Giant or Sid Vicious. But it's still impressive nonetheless, because Flair is not the most ripped, jacked guy on the block. I hate the backstage stooges trying to keep Elizabeth from coming to the ringside. It just doesn't make sense to me. Is it WrestleMania 6? I believe it's WrestleMania 6 where, we're having the Sherry Martel, Elizabeth feud, Macho King. They're in the ring. Elizabeth comes out of the crowd, and nobody stops her then. I don't understand. She left the ring and came back with Hogan in WrestleMania 4. Why here and now in WrestleMania 8 do we have these backstage stooges all over Elizabeth trying to convince her to go backstage? I understand from the business side of it. You want to create drama, and it creates drama that guys are telling her, please don't come out here. But as a fan, I'd be wondering, why in the heck are these dudes here? She's done this before. This isn't a new thing. She has come to the ring several times to either put Savage away or to come to his aid. So I didn't understand that. It didn't make sense. They were irritating. They were in the way. I thought the final spot was a little weak. Flair missed Macho Man with a head punch to get hit himself by Macho Man. And he was rolled up for the pin. Now, I understand you don't want every match to finish the same way. I've talked about match variety before. It makes sense to have match variety. It just gets tired when every time you put a finisher on a guy, it puts him away for the pin. I understand that. But still makes this a little weak, a little surprising of a finish. However, we got blood. We got both finishers. We got a figure four leg lock. We got the greatest elbow drop of all time. We got a wild crowd. And we even got Elizabeth fighting Flair. And then I wrote, long live Macho and Elizabeth. This was about 5-6 months before Macho Man and Elizabeth would divorce. And I know I've talked about it with Fable Prime and David's Comics and Wrestling. This is why you don't pay attention to things backstage. But, this is all hindsight. I've seen all the documentaries. I've read all the history. It's just hard for me. Very bittersweet to see these two in the ring at their very last WrestleMania together. Elizabeth would leave the company very soon after, and then start a very toxic relationship with Lex Luger. Moving on, though. Match 6, we got Rick the Model Martel versus Tatanka. And let me say this first. I even posted this in the community tab. Rick Martel's got a little funky, cool, jiving theme song. I really liked it. Got the seductive saxophone playing, and then this slapping bass. It's really, really cool. It's a basic theme song for sure. Like it's not going to generate a lot of heat from the crowd. It's real ambient, but I liked it. I liked it. It was funky. But it's definitely the match was definitely a battle of goofy gimmicks. All respect to Native Americans and their history and what they mean to this country and these lands, and all that good stuff. So I don't mean disrespect to Native Americans. For me, this gimmick doesn't work. I just thought it was a battle of goofy gimmicks. Native American and a model, a runway model. It's just a little goofy for me. Tatanka does look solid to start the match, although it looked like he knew about 5 moves. The moves he did were good, but there was a point where Gorilla Monsoon botched and called Martel Ric Flair, but he saved himself. So good on Monsoon for saving himself, saying he's got Ric Flair on the mind. The finishing spot was definitely the best part of the match. Martel catching a Tatanka crossbody off the ropes for the pin. Flat match it's just a flat match where I caught myself being distracted and paying attention to the announcing more than the match. I don't know. There just wasn't any heat on this match. Whatever. That's how I feel about it. Match 7, we got Money Inc., Ted DiBiase, and IRS. I forget the guy's name. I just watched his final match on YouTube a little while back, like a week ago or something. It was in Japan. I think the guy wrestled alongside Barry Windham as the All-Americans in WrestleMania. Is it 2? It might be WrestleMania 1. No, it's WrestleMania 1. I can't remember. I can't remember his name. Anyways, but they're fighting the natural disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon. Both these teams are coming all across as heels. And in the golden era of wrestling, it's definitely rare to see a heel-on-heel match. Pre-match promos were okay. Pretty standard fare. DiBiase realizing locking up with Earthquake is not a good idea. It was a great opening spot. DiBiase got in there all confident. And as soon as, he starts trying to lock up with Earthquake and gets thrown into the turnbuckle, he starts to get a little worried. I liked that. That was good storytelling in the match. IRS selling and making Typhoon look like a monster. IRS was great at selling. It's very good in character in this match. Really impressed with him. I wasn't impressed with Typhoon. Just kind of a below average guy. And it wasn't really a great match, but I liked the finish. Money Inc. Money Inc. doing heel stuff. Money Inc. doing money things. Taking their belts and walking out. Keeping the belts via disqualification. I like it. Moving on to match 8. One of the worst WrestleMania matches of all time, in my opinion. Skinner the Alligator Man. Great gimmick, right? That just puts fear into the heart of little kids. Skinner the Alligator Man. Versus Owen the Rocket Hart. And I'm putting emphasis on the Rocket because he's not quite yet the King of Hearts that we come to know and love. Alligator Man spits some kind of liquid into Hart's face, immediately getting onto offense and punishing Owen. Owen really had 0 offense in this match, which was a shame. I understand McMahon didn't, in the land of giants, McMahon didn't know how to handle a high flyer like Owen Hart. But it's a shame you didn't let Owen get to wrestle. And then it was a short match. Owen ended up just pushing Alligator Man into the ropes, and as he fell back, he got rolled up for the pin. And it was a bad finish, bad match, but I never get mad when a bad match has a quick finish. I just thank you for putting me out of my misery. Probably one of the worst main event setups there ever was. I just don't get. I don't get the idea behind. I don't get the idea behind putting these garbage matches right before the main event. In my opinion, I would want to build the crowd into a frenzy, not have them cool off right before they need to get loud. But whatever, they're not paying me to book WrestleMania. And in match 9, we have the main event. I noticed Hogan had a bittersweet look on his face walking to the ring. It kind of reminds me of the face he had coming down the ring to turn heel in WCW. I read that Hogan left the company in the summer of 1993. So I think we will still see Hogan in WrestleMania 9. Because I believe WrestleMania 8. Yeah, WrestleMania 8 is 93. So this is his final WrestleMania as the main event. He'll have a match with Hogan maybe a decade later. Did I say he'll have a match with Hogan? He'll have a match with The Rock a decade later. But yeah, Hogan knows his time's up. I can just see it all over his face. Hogan's music continued to play and I understand the bell hadn't rung yet, and they're already fighting. But it was just irritating that the music guy would not turn off Hogan's music until he did the shirt rip and the bell rang. That was irritating to hear the music just continue to play. I don't need to hear I'm a Real American for 10 minutes. I thought it was a little corny and tired that a simple chop to the chest sends Sid Vicious down to the mat or to the floor for enough time to let Hogan showboat and shirt rip and I don't know. It's just corny to me. You're trying to sell me on a simple move is going to keep Vicious out of the match that long. I didn't like that. I'm just getting tired of Hogan. He's wearing on me at this point. I did like Sid trying to quell the Hulkamaniacs and just kind of got the crowd involved, made them feel like more of a part of the match. Every time Hogan mounted a comeback, it just took away the drama for me. It's just a tired, old thing. I've seen it for 7 of the 8 WrestleManias now. Like, do something else. I definitely would have been a kid that embraced the new generation era had I been old enough to understand and pay attention to WrestleMania. I like the Test of Strength spot. Between this and the Ultimate Warrior Test of Strength was one of the best spots Hogan's had. I think it was Hogan's finest job of working the crowd. Not overcoming Sid Vicious. Letting Sid Vicious overpower him. Him trying to mount a comeback. Him trying to overpower Sid Vicious. Just worked the crowd into a loud frenzy. There was a great chokeslam on Hogan. I'm very impressed that Sid, and I understand Hogan probably went up for Sid, but it still looks great nonetheless. There was a corny trap squeeze spot. I hate this move. I don't care who does it. I hate this move where they try to submit a guy just by squeezing on their traps. There's no way in a shoot match you can't get out of that hold, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like there's better ways to hold somebody. Sid couldn't fully hoist up Hogan with his powerbomb, but I give it to the man. He executed it cleanly. So whether he stood tall with Hogan or had to drop him pretty quickly, doesn't matter. It still looked good. And then the match the wind went out of the sails for the match. in WrestleMania 7, where it was mostly a flat, boring, tired match that had drama at the end, the Slaughter Hogan main event. This match was the opposite. I think this match had the drama and the momentum at the beginning of the match, and then they took the air out of it. And again, we've talked about match variety. We don't need to go over the obvious. But it's just a bad move. It's just bad for storytelling, in my opinion, to have Ultimate Warrior and Papa Shango. Well, first they rang the bell. So Sid Vicious is disqualified because of his manager, which is bad for storytelling. You shouldn't have your WrestleMania main event in disqualification. You just shouldn't. The crowd should get a complete match, in just my opinion. The only way I would accept a disqualification is if we got everything we wanted out of a match, and it was just you wanted to sell the match as a 50-50, like, we just can't decide who's going to win. That's when I would accept a disqualification of a WrestleMania main event. Like say Hogan and Warrior. If Hogan and Warrior had ended in disqualification, maybe. If it was done right, where both guys disqualified each other, that'd have been cool. But just to have the ref enter the match and start attacking Hogan and get caught by the ref, and that ends the match, I didn't like that. And then Shango and Warrior coming out, it's just bad for storytelling, in my opinion. And I just have mixed feelings about this match. From a business standpoint, I totally get it. It's total fan service. You want Warrior and Hogan teaming up. You've never gotten that before. We got the Ultimate Maniacs. We never got to see Hogan and Warrior team up, to my recollection, because Hogan acts surprised that Warrior comes out and helps him. Warrior's still pretty freaking hot name in '93. I know he's on his way out. He didn't even get a match in WrestleMania 8, but the crowd still pops for Warrior. So I get it from the business side. It's total fan service. The crowd went nuts. It's one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard at a WrestleMania. So in that sense, WrestleMania 8 was a success. They gave the crowd what they wanted. But from a storytelling side, from the business side, from somebody that wants good storytelling and good wrestling, I just... That was an awful way to finish a WrestleMania, in my opinion. I wasn't that invested in this match. Hogan, I'm just so ready to move on from Hogan. I'm so excited to see in WrestleMania 9, I get Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. No Hulk Hogan, finally. Goodness. I still was invested in the match enough that the finish bothered me. Anyways, let's move on to the awards. So for best promo, it came down to Roddy Piper, who's really funny, talking about Bret Hart not being potty trained until he was 7 years old, and bringing up embarrassing memories and kind of triggering Bret. And then there's Ric Flair, who had a very intense promo. I liked it. His post-match promo was great. Demanding revenge on Macho Man, having blood in his hair on his face. I really liked that post-match promo from Ric Flair. The best spot, I'm going to have to give it to Piper biting Bret's head wound. I'd never seen that before. Bret bladed himself and he was bleeding. And then Piper bit his head. I just thought that was pretty gruesome. It's pretty interesting. I'd never seen that before. My favorite wrestler of WrestleMania 8 was Roddy Piper. Just very entertaining. I was very impressed with his wrestling. He actually tried to wrestle and not just bar fight somebody. Bret Hart really brought out the best in Piper, and it's the best Piper match. It's the best technical Piper match I've ever seen. Maybe he's got a lot better wrestling in other matches, but for me and what I've seen, WrestleMania 8 is some of his best material. The best wrestler of WrestleMania 8, I'm going to have to give it to Macho Man. Best wrestler is supposed to be more of a technically sound award, the best display of skills in a wrestling match. And, I don't know if there was an obvious candidate for this award in this WrestleMania. This is one of the least technically sound WrestleManias I've seen. I didn't really see, and Bret Hart got a big match. He got a title match, and still I've yet to see that legendary match. I've yet to see the match where I finally get it with Bret Hart. I've not seen all these crazy moves, all this extensive knowledge of wrestling from Bret Hart. And to be fair, it's all been his WrestleMania material. But I've not seen anything from Bret Hart that leads me to believe everybody's right about Bret. He's the greatest wrestler of all time. I still don't understand it about Bret Hart and why people consider him the greatest wrestler of all time. And he's not trash. He's a good wrestler, but I just don't get it. I've seen way more creative stuff from Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man. A lot more move variety from Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man. But yeah, I'm going to have to give best wrestler to Macho Man just because I simply think he was the best wrestler of WrestleMania 8. Just my opinion. The best match, I'm going to have to give to the Intercontinental Championship match. While I think that the WWF title match should have been the main event, should have been the biggest match, I think the best wrestling match, the best display of wrestling was no doubt the Intercontinental Championship match. It was just about the only real technical match. There was a little technicality in the WWF title match, but, it's Ric Flair. He's not going to put you in chicken wings and do 45-minute submission holds and then reverse counter you into another submission hold. It's just Ric Flair. He's there to entertain and work and get you over and make his money. So, yeah, best match, give it to the Intercontinental Championship match. Just very impressed overall with what Piper brought to the table. So, those are the awards. Closing thoughts. WrestleMania 8 is an okay WrestleMania with me. There's some dream matches on the card. Undertaker and Jake the Snake is a fantastic idea for a feud. I need to follow that feud. I need to figure out where it picks up and where it drops off. Feels like it concludes at WrestleMania. Jake the Snake got a lot of premier feuds, and he should have been a champion at some point, in my opinion. I'm tired of Hogan. I can't say enough. I'm glad we're done with Hogan. I honestly feel like Hogan jumped the shark at WrestleMania 6. I like the trilogy. I'll say this all day. I like the trilogy. Hogan being champion and defending WrestleMania 1. Hogan getting the belt back at 2. Hogan defending the belt at 3. 3 should have been the end of the long reigning title match. Should have had other people be champion after WrestleMania 3. You still could have had Hogan in the main event scene, and I would have preferred Hogan be the challenger to Ultimate Warrior in WrestleMania 6, and then Hogan not winning the title at WrestleMania 6 and just putting Hogan to bed. Ultimate Warrior should have been the wrestler to put Hogan to bed. I don't care about all the drama. I don't care about all the politics that caused Vince McMahon to go away from Ultimate Warrior back to Hogan. He should have never went back to Hogan. You had Jake the Snake. You had Macho Man. British Bulldog. You were starting to build up Bret Hart. There's a handful of guys that could have been a fantastic champion in the early 90s for you. And I don't understand why we're in 1993 and Hogan's still main eventing WrestleMania. Oh, man. Or 1992. Is it 1993? Yeah, it's 1993. Yeah, so ready to be done with Hogan. It's kind of bittersweet for me that we're now done with the golden age of wrestling. I've come to appreciate the golden age of wrestling a lot more than I already have. You know, being a big Macho Man fan, being an Ultimate Warrior fan. You know, I now have a newfound love for the British Bulldog and the British Bulldogs, that tag team. I now have a newfound appreciation for Jake the Snake Roberts, Ricky the Steamboat Dragon, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, excuse me, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, a lot of wrestlers that I either blew off or just flat out didn't appreciate because I've watched all the WrestleManias through the golden era of wrestling. I now appreciate that era much, much more than I ever thought I would. Next match, our next episode, WrestleMania 9, we'll get into the new era. Looking forward to Bret Hart and Yokozuna. That's going to be a pretty unique matchup. I'm interested to see how Bret works with Yokozuna. I've seen one Yokozuna match. I believe Yokozuna maybe fights Macho Man for the title. I'm not exactly sure. It's on Macho Man's anthology that came out after he passed away. So I have seen one entire full match with Yokozuna, but this one will be different. This will be for the title, and I'm looking forward to it, guys. Thank you, as always, for liking, subscribing, commenting. I've been working on getting these episodes a lot shorter. They're more digestible this way, I think. I hope I did a good job and got through it. I feel like I paused a little bit, coughed a little bit in the microphone, but we got through it. We got through it, guys. And until next time.